Welcome. This is my latest project, an unnamed VR horror game I'm developing. This is my first time ever developing a VR game, so we'll see how it goes. The enemy in my game is this priest model I got for free on the asset store. You have to do your best to avoid making too much noise, as it will alert him. He will wander the map randomly, and when you're spotted, he will chase you. If you hide from him, he will investigate the area he last saw you in. Throughout the map, you can pick up useful items, such as distraction tools, like a tin can you can chuck on the ground to make a distraction. Or you can find a flashlight. The level seen here is just a little test area so I can make sure all the mechanics work properly. Here's a little look on how the code works. I have a state machine for the enemy, and with this piece of code right here, I can change states. This is called whenever an item hits the ground, or the enemy loses sight of the player, or any other state change. This piece of code here is used to detect if the player is in sight. First there's the direction, which is determined right here by subtracting the player's position by the enemy's position. Then there's the distance between the enemy and the player. Here's the viewing angle for the enemy. If the player is not within this viewing angle, he won't be noticed, thus returning false. Now perform a ray cast between the player and the enemy, checking if there's any objects in between the two. If there isn't any, then we use that here in the update. This is where we can check if the player is in sight and if there's not already a chase state active. Then a chase state is now created, the jump scare sound effect is played, then it creates a new chase state. Here is the chase state. In the enter function here, you can see that the last known position is being stored immediately in case the enemy loses sight of the player. Then the nav mesh agent has a new destination, which is the player. Inside of this update function here, you can see that we're constantly checking if the player is in sight. If the player is in sight, we just move him. If the player is not in sight, then we start counting down this timer. This timer will keep track of how long the enemy has lost sight of the player. If this threshold is reached, it'll change to an investigative state, where we pass in the last known position of the player. Once the player is back in sight, we can reset the timer and keep moving the enemy. Here's what the move enemy function looks like. I'm not going to go into too much detail as how this works. Briefly, I'm using animation blend trees here to apply root motion to the enemy's animator. The way the wander and investigative states work is it grabs a general position, whether it's randomly generated or triggered by a sound, and it'll direct the enemy to that position, and once it's reached, it'll wait a random set amount of time and then generate a new position, and it'll keep repeating this. That way the enemy can search the area to see what the noise or disturbance was. This same logic is used in the wander state to generate random positions around the map. I hope you enjoyed this devlog. I plan on releasing another one sometime in the coming weeks to update my progress. It's been a lot of fun. I look forward to making more videos like this. Peace.